Mayhem has been masquerading as a teenager at local high school called Hull High, and to set up a Halloween party at a local haunted funeral parlor on the Hull Road, which the town legend most of townspeople know not to go fooling around that land, which is local to the largest cemetery in Wisconsin. Well, let's talk about this town, so you will not be fucking lost and you know exactly what fuck is about to happen. So the legend goes that the entire city of Hull was once Native American land, and pilgrims came in and slaughtered all the Native Americans and took over. One of the pilgrims was named Clinton Hull, and he had 6 brothers: Nathan, Kelton, Louis, Stephen, Zed, and worst of all them, Peyton, who was the oldest and wildest and loved raping men just to punish the men more, and that he did with the chief of tribe. He would rape that man for 7 days in front of his entire tribe. He and his brothers killed the entire tribe as the chief watched, and then Peyton skinned the chiefs alive and burned him. Clinton, the weakest and the youngest, 16 years old, was forced to kill because of fear of what Peyton would do to him. The rest of pilgrims that travel to this town will never know what the Hull family did to this land until a few generations later. The Hull family was cursed. Members of the family would die brutally, either way of war or disease. After a few decades, Peyton and Clinton would outlast their entire family. Clinton, who was 49 years old when he fell in love with a 29-year-old prostitute named Sarah Logan, and he knocked her up, and Clinton knew his family was cursed, and he decided to pay back the Native Americans in way of blood, and he decided to kill Peyton, who is the founder of this town and now in his 80s. And one night, Clinton drugged Peyton and brought him to mass grave, where they buried the Native Americans, and Peyton wakes up tied up to a tree. Clinton tells Peyton that he is sorry, but he has a baby on the way, and he can let what happened to the family happen to Sarah and his baby. This curse must be broken, and the only way it can be is for Peyton to be offered up by a sacrifice to the dead. Peyton says Clinton that he is a damned fool, and that he will hang for this. Narrator says, wait, now how would Clinton know to sacrifice Peyton, and that it would lift the curse? Well, Mayhem, of course. One day before, Mayhem would ride into town dressed in a beige cowboy outfit, smoking a cigar, riding on a white horse, wearing red and blue boots, and walking into a Red's bordello wearing. He sees Clinton, who comes to the bordello every Friday to spend time with Sarah. But this particular Friday, he finds out Sarah is pregnant, and he's scared of the curse, and he's drinking himself drunk enough to kill himself. And Mayhem offers some words to Clinton, and yes, Mayhem knows who Clinton is. Mayhem knows who everyone is, because Mayhem has been to all the universes many times in different ways. It's like seeing your favorite movie many times on different occasions, and this time Mayhem decides to give Clinton advice on how to get rid of the family's curse. So now you are all caught up. Clinton calls out in the darkness the name of tribe 6 times, and the dead Native Americans comes for Peyton, and he is screaming out Clinton that he will come back for him. And the dead Native Americans are dragging Peyton down in the mass grave, ripping off his clothes and tearing into his fleshing, and they are eating flesh, or actually devouring his soul. Clinton turns away, and the chief of the tribe appears in front of him and grabs his face, and the chief's hands burn Clinton's face, and the chief says in his language to Clinton, you have created your own demon, you have a date in hell. The chief let Clinton go, and Clinton is running like hell through the woods. Clinton and Sarah would get married and give birth birth to a son named Jackson Hull, who would be a war hero who fathered 3 boys and 7 daughters. 3 decades later, in 1948, on the very land and mass grave of the Native Americans, was built a home by Lance Hull in 1908, whose grandson Vance Hull has been living in for 20 years with his 2 twin daughters, Joan and Josie, and 2 teenager boys, John and Jesse. Jesse, who was a young hippie and got mixed up with the occult, had unleashed a demon, which was formerly known as Peyton Hull, and it had so much hatred for Clinton, and it's known that this Clinton's family. So Peyton terrorizes the family and in different ways forces Jesse to save his family by murdering them, and then Peyton inhabits Jesse and devours his soul, but not until John was presumed dead, would ignore his wounds and kill the demon. The town assumed that John killed his brother in self-defense. Years later, after years of therapy, John thought he was just crazy and decided to buy back his family home and turn it into a funeral parlor. But John would start to hear voices from Peyton, and he would start to hunt and kill innocent people to feed the demon who kept at bay. John would grow into an old man, which he would get the nickname Old Man Hull, and he died in that funeral parlor. 1978, the supposedly last of Hull family, but Old Man Hull had a few night stands with different women in town, but out of respect, they named the street Old Hull Road. Back to 1988, 8:36 p.m. Teenagers, Remy Carpenter, high school captain of the varsity football team and leader of this pack, Janet Taylor, head cheerleader, and Remy's girlfriend, daughter of the mayor, Tiffany Taylor, Barbie Browning, aka BB, wannabe singer, and school mascot Jake Cobb, the bad boy Lionel James, aka LJ, the comedian and a future movie star, Francesca Dallas, Miss Teen USA, Peter Watts, a nerd and is secretly in love with Francesca Angela Sawyer, the goth chick, and the one responsible for throwing this party, and a distant relative of the Hull family. Mayhem has been setting this stage for a while for his own amusement. He is backing the funding for this party at the Hull estate, but all of this is leading to something big down the line. The teenagers have arrived at the old Hull house with 5 more of their friends: Howard, Roland, Kelly, Scotty, a weird punk rocker who is a total pervert and not a high school kid, and Angela's boyfriend Tanya Nichols, who only came to the party to just explore the house. Scotty brings into the house a keg of beer. Angela has just finished decorating the house and lighting candles around the house. Tanya grabs Jake to accompany her with her exploring. Howard and Roland start setting up the stereo. Remy and Janet are still in his Thunderbird, listening to the radio, and the song Alone by Heart is playing while they are making out. Remy starts undressing Janet and her perky breasts are exposed, and Remy smiles and starts sucking on her breast. Janet moans! Francesca, Peter, Kelly, BB, and LJ are walking around the dark rooms in the back of the house, and BB gets freaked out by the spiders and rats. Something in the dark is watching them. BB runs into the darkness away from the rats screaming, and she accidentally falls through a rotten floor, which she ends up in the crematorium, and she falls unconscious. Peter and LJ split up to find a way to her. Francesca calls out to BB Dark Shadow. to the crematorium. Peter gets lost and something comes after the darkness and grabs him. Angela is dancing to the song Naked in the Rain by Dio, and the candles are bouncing off the walls as Remy and Janet finally walk into the house and door locks behind them, and dark laughing echoes in the darkness. Howard, Roland, and Scotty are in the dark kitchen smoking a joint. Scotty walks out with 2 beers in his hand, watching Angela dancing in the candlelight, and says to himself, how the hell did I get so lucky? Tanya walks into Old Man Hull's bedroom and finds a journal, and she opens it. Jake is standing in the hallway and smoking a cigarette, and he starts hearing voices tell him to leave the house. Tanya reads the chapter in the journal that explains the history of the Hull family, and its curse confirmed everything she already knew. Tanya says, we need to leave. Jake says, this house is fucking weird. LJ finds his way to BB, and he picks her up and carries her up the stairs, meets with Francesca and Kelly and LJ, where Peter appear out of the darkness as a demon. Peter grabs Francesca by the neck and kisses her and rips out her tongue. Francesca is screaming. BB wakes up and her face is demonic, and she tries to grab LJ's face, and he throws her back through the hole in the floor. Kelly attacks Peter and LJ, grabs Francesca, and LJ yells out, Kelly, it's time to fucking go. Kelly follows LJ and Francesca. They're running through the hallway. BB rises out of the hole in the floor. Jake hears the screaming and yelling and sees LJ, Kelly, and Francesca running towards them, and Tanya comes out of the bedroom. Jake and Tanya sees BB flying through the air behind them, and they start running towards the front of the house. Peter, with his demonic face, appears from the darkness and scares the shit out of Roland. Roland realizes that he is in danger quickly. Roland grabs a full beer can and throws at Peter, and Peter sprints towards and he tears into Roland's face, and Scotty hears Roland screaming, turns around, and he sees Peter ripping open Roland's skull with his claws. Scotty screams like a girl and runs for the door. Angela, Remy, and Janet is wondering what the fuck is going on. Then Peter appears and they're saying, holy shit! Kelly, LJ, Jake, Francesca, and Tanya run into the living room and see Scotty trying to get the door open, and it's not budging. Howard is high as hell. He runs into a flying BB, and she tears out his eyes and she eats his eyeballs and throws him on the ground, and she throws up inside of his mouth. Jake and LJ attack Peter. Remy tries to help Scotty break down the door. Francesca turns into a demon and grabs Jake from behind and throws him on top of the burning candles, and Jake is on fire. Peter rips out LJ's heart. Tanya is attacked by Howard, who is now a demon, and bashes her head into the wall until her head hurts like a ripe watermelon. Remy grabs Janet, Angela, and Kelly and starts running to the back of the house. Scotty is now in the kitchen station, trying to get out the back door, which is painted shut. Baby is smiling and looks at his ass, and she tells Scotty that he looks good enough to eat. Scotty says, please don't eat me. Scotty gets on his knees and says, you can do anything you want with me, just don't eat or burn me. BB says, I don't want any of those things, and Scotty says, what do you want? Moments later, BB is riding his Scotty's cock, and they are both moaning, and BB says, harder fucker. Remy, Kelly, Janet, and Angela have barricaded themselves in the attic. Remy is scared shitless, but trying to be brave for Janet. Meanwhile, Ronan has arrived at St. Joan Academy by accident, which is 20 miles away from Old Hull Road. Ronan goes to leave and he sees Valentina, aka Joan of Arc, on the wall of the church. Ronan thinks of Valentina and he hears her calling for him in the night wind. Ronan smiles and walks away and sees a red Porsche, which belongs to a priest at the school. And Ronan gets in the car and turns on the radio, and Foreigner Jukebox Hero is playing. As Ronan rides out into the darkness towards Old Hull Road, driving like a bat out of hell, as the demons are breaking through the attic floor, and they grab Remy's legs and rip them off, and Janet is still holding on to Remy's hands as he is pulling through attic, and they take her as well, and blood splatter everywhere. Grabs a leg of a chair and it's nails in it, and she unbarricades the door and grabs Kelly's hand, and they run out of the door back downstairs. They are quickly surrounded by all the demons, and BB appears and says, death is only the beginning, Angela. You and Kelly will love it here. BB goes to grab Kelly, and Ronan drives the red Porsche into the living room and is singing along with the song on the radio. The demons are confused as well as Angela and Kelly. Ronan gets out of the car wearing his mask, and he is dancing to Jukebox Hero. Ronan stops dancing and he turns to the demons, branding his flag, jackhammer, shotgun, and Scotty runs towards Ronan. Ronan blasted Scotty and he turned to ashes. Francesca flies towards him, and Ronan quickly holsters his shotgun, and Ronan catches Francesca and suplexes her to the floor, and performs an elbow drop on her and crushes her body to a bloody mess. Jake, TJ, and Peter are surrounding Ronan. Music gets louder, and Ronan pulls out his sword and quickly slices through them, and limbs and blood are flying everywhere. Angela and Kelly knock down BB as they run through the opening. Ronan walks up to BB, and BB asks Ronan, who the fuck are you? Ronan says, I am the Blood Ronan. BB tries to run at Ronan, and Ronan slices BB in half. Angela and Kelly are running down the road past Old Hull Road towards the moonlight. Ronan is cleaning off his sword, and mayhem appears on the stairs, clapping his hands as he is walking down. He's saying, this was not ending. I was expecting only one of them had the power to be my final girl. You ruined my ending. Ronan turns towards the stairs and says, Orion Mayhem, I am here to bring you in. Mayhem flips his hair and says, the TVA has sent another champion to bring me in. Let me tell you something about me, Blood Ronan. You're not the first and you are not last, so how about you go back to whatever dimension final girl, you and my ending. Ronan turns towards the stairs and says, Orion Mayhem, I am here to bring. Mayhem flips his hair and says, the TVA has sent another champion to bring me in. Let me tell you something about me, Blood Ronan. You're not the first and you are not last. So how about you go back to whatever dimension they dragged you from before I send you to a hell dimension, where you will face all types of nightmarish type of shit that you're kind of never encountered before. Ronan smiles and says, I am not anyone you've ever met before. I welcome death! Ronan brands his sword and says, dead or alive, you're coming with me. Mayhem says and yells, let's see what you got, Blood Ronan. Welcome to the jungle by Guns N' Roses starts playing. Ronan rushes Mayhem and he is taking all of Ronan's attacks, and no damage is being done to Mayhem, and Mayhem grabs Ronan by his sword arm and throws him through the wall in the living room. Mayhem picks up a keg of beer and throws it at Ronan, and Ronan goes flying across the room. Ronan gets up and is pissed and his sword is in the wall. Ronan grabs his shotgun and is shooting at Mayhem, and Mayhem is dodging through the slag rounds and quickly knocks the shotgun out of his hands. Mayhem starts beating up Ronan, and every move is a critical hit. Ronan's ribs are broken and he has interior bleeding. Mayhem punches a hole into Ronan's chest and pulls out his heart, and Ronan falls to his knees. Mayhem grabs Ronan's face and says to Ronan, I never killed anyone. The TVA sent after me before I had always sent them to a hell world, but you really thought you were special. Mayhem headbutts Ronan, bashing Ronan's skull in. Ronan lays motionless on the living room. Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd starts playing as Mayhem starts lighting his cigarette, and he walks out of the door. Music plays loudly as camera pans around Ronan's body, and it starts to regenerate. Angela and Kelly have made it to the neighborhood. Mayhem is smoking outside, looking at a darkness, and Ronan opens the door and is now standing behind Mayhem with his skull starting to regenerate. The music is getting louder. Mayhem stops smoking and turns around and sees Ronan with his sword in his hand. Mayhem is completely shocked. Ronan is smiling and says it's time, and raises his sword and wields it towards Mayhem, and Mayhem dodges his attack, and Mayhem throws a few punches at Ronan and connects to Ronan. Mayhem is stronger than Ronan, but Ronan is faster. Ronan dodges his attacks and Ronan slices Mayhem's face. Mayhem is worried. Ronan tries to stab Mayhem. Mayhem opens up a portal, and Mayhem moves out of the way, and Ronan falls into the portal in slow motion. The town of Hull is over. Check out of the Blood Ronan audiobook.